Hi guys, it's Ms. Miner, and this is the video for assignment 8C. And today, really what we're going to kind of do is just take a break from learning new exponent rules. We've learned a ton of exponent rules, and because there's a lot of little just rules and little things that I have to remember and kind of a lot of steps to go through in order to solve these problems. Today we're really just going to practice the rules that we've learned so far. So we have multiplying monomials, we have dividing monomials, and we have the power rule. And so we're just going to practice those rules today. So nothing new, but what I'd like to do is kind of just go through and review our rules and do some problems so that we can just kind of maybe clear up any of these little places where we're getting stuck or things that might challenge us just a little bit. And so what my goal today is just be able to take a problem and figure out what common mistakes do people make. So we're going to be looking at some problems and we're going to find some errors. And on our homework today, we're doing find, fix, and justify, which I really like because I have to figure out, what the error is and how to fix it, and then tell what I did to be able to fix it. And that really kind of helps us think through some of these common errors that we make, and kind of helps maybe clear some of those things up. On today's assignment, there might be an error, there might not be an error. So maybe the result that is on our assignment today is a correct answer. And so if that's the case, then you just need to write no fix needed on those. So we'll go through some homework problems during this video today. But let's just take a look at this problem that's on the board right here, and let's see if we can go through and figure out what common mistake has been made on this problem here. Well, last time when we were talking about the power rule, remember the power rule says that if I have something in parentheses, that thing is being grouped together, and whatever is on the inside of the parentheses now becomes my new base, and it is being affected by this power out here. And what we learned last lesson was that I'm going to distribute that power to everything on the inside of the parentheses. And so if I'm doing a problem like this, and here's my answer, right? I'm trying to decide, is that the correct answer or not? Well, a good way to do that is just go ahead and solve the problem itself. Solve this over here first and see what you get, and then compare it to the result that's being given and see if you can find what error was made. So if I solve this out, I'm going to get a to the 8th over b to the 12th. And then if I'm comparing these things, I see, they just didn't distribute the power to the denominator. And so if I were doing a problem like this on my homework assignment, I would just write a little sentence or just a little expression that says something like exponent, and I even abbreviate words. So I would say exponent didn't get distributed to the denominator. And that's kind of what I would do for my assignment. I'd kind of just give myself a little note, because really you're going to be checking this on your own. And so, or checking it in class. And so as long as you can understand, right, what you're talking about, then that's probably a perfectly logical way to go about that. If you're one of my online students, then you'll maybe want to write it out in a way that Ms. Miner will be able to understand it when I'm taking a look at it. I do take a look at your homework and make sure that it's looking pretty good. I'm not going to lie, I don't grade every single problem, but I usually have 3 or 4 that I try and take a look at to see how you're doing on your homework, and if there's any that you have, places where I feel like you need to go back and take another look at it. So for those of you who are in person, in class, you can go ahead and just write it down because you'll be grading it on your own. And then if you're one of my online kids, if you just give me a little explanation, I can usually figure out what you mean, but write it out enough that you feel like Ms. Miner's probably going to understand what it is you're talking about. Okay, let's take another look at another example here, and then we'll do some straight off of our homework assignment. Some that I picked out that I feel like might be a little bit more challenging, and so we'll talk about those and talk about our assignment for today. Okay, so here again, my division rules, right? What I usually do is, instead of just like jumping straight over here, I try and solve this problem on my own first and see what I get. And so if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, division rules say what I should do is first look and figure out where there are more exponents. That's where my letter is going to be. And then I subtract the exponents, 9 minus 3. And here's maybe something that was not in the last video, or maybe I just didn't explain it like fully. But remember, if I have everything cancel out in the numerator, I need to put the 1 back in there as the placeholder for my numerator. And the reason for that, we talked about in my face-to-face class, but maybe not so much for my online kids. The reason why we do that is because if I just leave it as b to the 6th, right? Well, that's like taking a fraction like 1/4 and saying that it is the same as 4. And that is clearly not the case. Those things are not equal. I've got to have that 1 in the numerator to keep that as a fraction 1/4, because 1/4 and 4 are not the same. Now, if everything cancels out in the denominator, and I have a 1 in the denominator, well, that is the same as just writing it as a whole number, because when I divide by 1 in the denominator, that's going to give me my whole number over here. And so if I have a 1 in the numerator, or if everything cancels out in the numerator, I need to put the 1 back in there as a placeholder to keep it a fraction. And so, but if everything cancels out in the denominator, I don't necessarily need to leave the 1 in the denominator. I can simplify that and just write it as a whole number. So there's the difference between having the 1 in the numerator and having the 1 in the denominator. Okay, so my result that I got when I solved this is 1 over b to the 6th. And of course, now we can see the problem is that we need the 1 in the numerator. We need the 1 in the numerator. Okay, so there we go. And that's kind of exactly like what we're going to be doing on our assignment today. So what I did is I put all of the rules for multiplying and dividing and the power rule up here, kind of all of our like little steps, Ms. Miner's checklist, if you will. And what I'd like to do is take some problems straight off of your homework assignment and just go through them so that we kind of just review like our rules for multiplying, our rules for dividing, and then our rules for the power rule. And I'm going to pick a couple where I feel like they might be a little bit more challenging. So just to help you guys through this just a little bit. We did some multiplying already. We did some dividing already. So remember, that's division. But what I wanted to do really quickly is just review maybe the power rule. And there's one on your homework that I want to just give you a heads up. If you have your assignment in front of you, you can take a look at number 10 on the front page of your homework assignment. This is number 10. It's straight off your homework assignment. And this is what it looks like. It has a bracket, and then it has a parenthesis, and it says y squared inside the parenthesis. And then that's being raised to the 3rd power. And then that's being raised to the 2nd power again. And so we've got kind of a lot of powers being raised to a power. Well, what's happening here is I have 2 of these and I have 3 of these, right? So we're layered. But remember, in my power rule, this part where it says simplify the parentheses, what I'm really doing is distributing the exponent. And when we distribute, we multiply the exponent. And maybe that's something you might want to add back into your notes just so that you have it. You know, add some little notes here and there to clarify what Ms. Miner's thinking when I write these things down. And so really, I'm distributing this one right to there, and I'm distributing that to there. And so I'm really just taking all of my exponents and I'm multiplying them together. And so what I'm going to end up with is y to the 2 times 3 times 2. Well, when I multiply 2 times 3, I get 6. And then multiply that by 2, I get 12. And so I'm going to end up y to the 12th. And if I look at my homework problem, that's exactly the result that they got. Theirs said equals y to the 12th. And so this one would be an example where I could put no fix needed. And I usually abbreviate that as NFN, no fix needed. You don't have to write that all the way out on your homework assignment today. But if you see this where it's being raised to a power multiple times, what we're really doing is we're just multiplying all of our exponents together to get that final exponent. Okay, so let's try another one from straight off of our homework assignment. And this one, let's just do a regular old problem from our homework assignment. Let's kind of start at the beginning. Actually, I think most of the rest of them are pretty. I think that most of the rest of them on the homework assignment are pretty easy, except for maybe number 18. Let's take a look at number 18. It's a little bit tricky because what we're working with here is some addition, right? 3 squared plus 3 to the 4th. And on your homework assignment, it says that is equal to 3 to the 6th. So we have to decide what's happening here. Well, if you look up here at all of our steps, I have steps for multiplying monomials, and I have steps for dividing monomials, and I have steps for if I have parentheses, right? But I don't have any steps for addition. And if you were in Ms. Miner's face-to-face class, you'll know Ms. Miner said we weren't going to do any addition in her class. And that's true because what I have down here is not a monomial. This is what we call a binomial. And quite frankly, we haven't discussed how to handle binomials. But we do have enough information that we could actually figure out what this problem is saying. And the information that we do have is that an exponent is telling me how many of the base that I have. So I cannot use my rules of multiplying or my rules of dividing or my power rule to solve this problem. But I could kind of problem solve it logically by figuring out that 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3, and that I would be adding that to 3 to the 4th power, which would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And so I could calculate that out and find out what those numbers are. And then I can just add the plain numbers together. And so that's how we're going to have to solve this problem right now. And so 3 squared is going to be 9. And then I'm going to be adding 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 81. And so all I really need to do to solve this problem right now, because these are numbers, I can actually calculate those out and add them together. And then I'm going to end up with 90. Now I've got to compare that with that. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to calculate out what 3 to the 6th power is, right? Because 3 to the 6th power is the same as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Or I can just put it in my calculator and calculate out 3 to the 6th power, which is what Ms. Miner's going to do right now. 3 to the 6th power is equal to 729. Well, that is not the same as 90, right? And so this one is 9 plus 81. does not equal 729. So in this one, if I were justifying my answer, I would say something like this. 9 plus 81 does not equal 729. It equals 90. So we've kind of fixed it, right? And I would just write it out that way. And there would be my answer. So number 18, even though we don't have any addition or subtraction rules, and we aren't really using addition and subtraction rules this year, we have enough knowledge that we can think through how we could go about figuring out if this problem was actually correct or not correct, right? We have enough knowledge that we can figure it out. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of go over that one from our homework assignment because, we haven't done any addition or subtraction with exponents yet. Okay, now let's flip it over to the back side of our assignment and let's just kind of review some rules. On the back side of our assignment, we're just practicing basic power rule, basic division rule. And so I feel like the back side is really good practice. So make sure you're going through that. I just want to do a couple of problems from the back side. And we're going to take a look at number 13 on the top part of it where it says, what happens to a dog that eats table scraps? So this is number 13 from that section. And it looks like this, negative 4x squared. And then that's being timesed by negative 4x squared. Okay, so we're just going to do basic power rule. We're just going to review basic power rule. And basic power rule says the first place that I want to look at, and remember our order of operations kind of dictates that we look at the parentheses first. Before I do any multiplying, I've got to simplify what's inside the parentheses first. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to insert some invisible 1 exponents in there because that's the first thing in my checklist. Then I want to go ahead and simplify in the parentheses by multiplying or distributing the exponents. Well, that was unfortunate. Multiply the exponents. Okay, so everything inside is going to get a 2 exponent multiplied by it. And even that exponent is going to affect that negative. Remember, the rule is if I have a negative inside parentheses and an even numbered exponent on the outside, then my result is going to turn positive. So I even have 2 of those negatives that are inside there, which is going to turn that negative to a positive. And so when I simplify this, I'm going to have 4x squared, and that's going to be timesing 4 to the second, x to the second. And now it's positive because of our negative rule, right? If I have a negative inside the parentheses and an even numbered outside, it's going to turn positive. Okay, so now I've simplified my parentheses. The next thing that I want to do is I'm kind of going down my checklist, right? Multiplication. I'm going to use my multiply steps, and here they are. And I want to remember that once my number gets an exponent on it, it's not a plain number anymore. And so I'm going to skip step 1. I'm going to treat these 4s as if they are bases. I'm going to put in another invisible 1 exponent so that I can just go through and add up the exponents of my like bases. There's a 4 base, there's a 4 base, this one is a 1, this one is a 2, and so I'm going to end up with a negative 4 to the third, and it's negative because I have a negative times a positive. So I'm going to end up with a negative 4 to the third. And then I'm going to look at my next base over, which is an x and an x. 2 plus 2 is equal to x to the fourth. I'm just adding up my exponents because that's what my multiply steps tell me to do. And the last thing that I want to go ahead and do is calculate out what 4 to the third power is. And 4 to the third power is equal to 4 times 4 times 4, so you could put it in your calculator that way. Or if you have an exponent button on your calculator, you can just put it in there and figure out that it is negative 64 x to the 4th. And there's my final answer. What I like about these problems on the back side is that because I'm kind of solving to get the answer to the riddle, I can go through the checklist and see if my answer is there. If my answer's not there,
Meeting with me this morning. This is Tom Wilbank. We're meeting in C112.
Sorry, if my answer's not there, then I need to go back and maybe rethink my work, right? So we can see then that this one is there. And so we've done pretty good with this one. All right. Okay, let's do another one from our homework assignment. And when you have your notes and you're taking notes in class, make sure you're adding little things to it, like this, like that. Little things, adding little notes in there for yourself is going to help clarify, right? When I make these checklists for you guys, they're kind of just my thought process. And maybe my thought process is a little bit different than yours. And so you're going to want to go and put in your own little notes to help clarify what Ms. Miner's talking about. So if you need to add stuff in here, this is a great time to do that. Okay, so let's do one more off of that same section. Let's take a look at number 16 from that section. Here's number 16 from that section, just a little bit more review of the power rule. And this is -5 and a to the 3rd, b to the 3rd, and it's being raised to the 2nd power. Okay, so my rules of exponents say that what I should do first is go and put any invisible 1 exponents in there, so I remember that even this 5 is going to get affected by that too. And then what I like to do is I like to come over here and check if there's any negatives inside parentheses. And look, here it is. How many negatives am I going to have? I'm going to have 2. And so this one is going to cancel out and turn positive. So I kind of do that first so that I've already taken care of my negative and I don't have to worry about it. Then I go ahead and distribute my 2 to all of the exponents on the inside. And I get 5 squared, a to the 6th, b to the 6th. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is take my calculator and calculate out what 5 squared is. 25, a to the 6th, b to the 6th. And then I can look on my homework assignment and see if any of those answers match mine. There it is. So that's my final answer. Okay, so I hope this is kind of just helping review power rule just a little bit and some of those multiply and divide rules. I'm going to do a division one. So if you look at the next section on the back side that says why are babies like hinges, I'm going to do a couple from that page. And let's take a look at number 16 from that page. And this is just division rules. So let's review our division rules. And I chose this one for a specific reason. And so I want to make sure everybody's on the same page here. U to the 8th, v squared. And then that's going to be over -6 u squared, v to the 6th. Okay, so I want to use my division rules up here. And so I'm just going to kind of go down my checklist. And the very first thing on my checklist says to highlight my plain numbers and simplify. I have a -9 and a -6. And as soon as we start doing exponents, because I'm subtracting my exponents, one of the most common errors that I see students make is they subtract the 9 and the 6. But remember, this is division. And these are regular numbers. They're plain numbers. They don't have exponents on them. And when that's the case, I'm just dividing them like I normally would divide things, right? This up here is the same as a -9 divided by -6 that we would do that we've been doing since way back in like 4th grade, right? And so I'm just going to divide these two numbers. A negative divided by a negative turns those positive. And then 9 divided by 6 doesn't divide evenly. So what I need to do is just reduce the fraction instead. And both of these are divisible by 3. So I can go ahead and divide both of those by 3 and get the number 3/2. And then I like to give myself a big old fraction bar because I'm going to add some letters to it, right? I've still got some letters to add to it. So I give myself a fraction bar where I have some space to add some letters to it afterwards. But I just take my fraction that's the plain numbers and I either circle it up or I rewrite it like I did down here in the bottom in order to be able to like think about that instead of like the most common error I get is that people tell me that this is 3 or that it's -3 or something like that. And that's not the case. Whenever I have plain numbers that don't have exponents on them, we're just dividing those like we normally would. Okay, then I want to go ahead and finish out this problem by using the rest of my my exponent rules up here, and I just look and I say, where are there more exponents? And you can even add that word into your notes so that you have it. Are there more exponents on the top of my fraction or on the bottom of my fraction, right? And so I'm looking at matching up those like bases and seeing where are there more exponents. There's more u's on the top of my fraction. And so the leftover u's, right, these are going to cancel out some of these. And the leftovers, because there was more on top, they're going to end up on top. So 8 minus 2 is 6. And then I do the same thing for the v's. There's 6 on top, there's 2 on bottom. And so the leftover v's are going to end up on bottom. And I'm going to end up with 4 v's on the bottom. And there's my final answer. Okay, so when we're dividing, hopefully that helps with those common errors. Be really careful about plain numbers, right? And by plain numbers, I mean they don't have exponents on them. Once my number gets an exponent on it, then we have to treat it like a base. But these plain numbers like this, 9 divided by 6, we just want to go ahead and treat them just like we would any other regular numbers. All right, last one. Go ahead and pause the video. Try this one on your own. See how you do, and then you're ready to go to your homework. Okay, hopefully you paused the video, tried this one on your own. You can check your work and see how you did. If you have any questions, be sure that you're emailing me or Mrs. Zeider so that we can help you figure things out. The first thing that I'm going to do, since this is a division problem, is just take my plain numbers, my fraction, right, and divide those. Well, if I divide 4 divided by 16, I'm going to get a fraction or a decimal. And so I want to just go ahead and reduce this. This one I'm going to divide by 4. This one I'm going to divide by 4 to reduce it. And so I'm going to end up with 1/4. And then I'm going to go back up to my original problem. I'm going to match up my bases, and I'm going to subtract my exponents. There's more k's on the bottom, so k is going to end up there. And 5 minus 2 is going to be 3. There's more m's on the bottom, and so m minus 3, 3 minus 2 is 1, and so there's my final answer. All right, okay, I hope that helps. I want you to go through, I want you to practice these rules. Our next homework assignment, our next lesson is going to add some more to this. So make sure that you're really practicing a lot and solidifying these multiplication, division, and power rules so that when we add the new stuff next class period, that we're ready to go. Okay, thanks, guys. Good luck.